We have with us today Dr. Naimullah Khan, basically a professor of botany. Is currently the professor of adjunct faculty, NAS ISC campus, Bangalore. He has been he served as in various capacities in St. Joseph's Autonomous College in Bangalore. He's also founder and general secretary, trustee of Haiku Society of India as well. He has got many awards to his credit. He has also got Mother Teresa Excellent Award for meritorious accomplishment in a diverse field of activities. He also has got Rashtra Pratibha Puraskar in recognition for his overall contribution. He has also got Rajiv Gandhi Excellence Award for communal harmony by International Integrity, Peace and Friendship for Society. He also has got his international experience. He has visited National University of Singapore in 1986. He has chaired a scientific session in an international conference, National University of Singapore. He is also well known for his address on communal harmony. One of his address is "Who will go to heaven? Hindu, Muslim, or a person of good deeds." And finally, he is very much a friend and a participant of IRHM Ashirwad. He is very much associated. Dr. Naimullah Khan, a warm welcome to you for this interreligious meeting. You are familiar with the meeting and familiar with the group. So thanks for accepting to address, especially today, on the theme of victory of good over evil. I now request you to address the participants on the topic. A warm welcome to you, and over to you, Doctor.
Father Gerald D'Souza, Father Terry, and Father Eugene, and Janaki Ram, and others who are there. I'm really grateful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to interact with you all on this forum, Interreligious Harmony Movement, which has been very inspiring to me. I have given several talks here, and also my alma mater, St. Joseph College, where I have been teaching. And Father Eugene used to say, why get any resource person to inaugurate any society there or any association there? Naim is always there. So he used to always trust me, and various associations of different subjects I used to inaugurate. Thank you, Father Eugene, for that excellent encouragement that you gave, and because of which I was able to make a lot of progress in my life. I have contributed extensively on science, mathematics, philosophy, various, these diverse fields, the two very fundamental questions I have addressed in all these fields, be it philosophy or mathematics or science. All this has been possible. Most of my ideas I used to get when I used to teach students during that time. And also when I used to interact with the audience here with the interreligious harmony movement. You might, as a test, ask what new idea did you get now when you were preparing for this talk. I think I'll come to that. It may not be a new idea, but something really nice I could hit upon while I was preparing for today's talk. Now, victory of good over evil. This is what I think all of us, when we used to watch Hindi movies, we used to see always the villain being defeated by the hero. And that kind of feeling that he is to represent evil and hero is to represent all the things that are good. So it is something we enjoy whenever this happens. That means it is in our very nature that we want to see good victorious over evil in every walk of life. And that is something that we should cultivate and we should aim for, because if we aim for good in every field of life, quite possible that there is harmony, quite possible there is peace, and possibly we may attain interreligious harmony all over the world, and all over again peace will be there. We know there are troubles in various places of the world of all sorts of kind. There is no peace, but if we strive that I think someday good forces all over the world will be victorious, and they will vanquish evil. Now, what should we do to achieve this? That is the question that I'll be addressing. It is said that if you go for the opposite, that generally happens many a times, and we watch helplessly, is evil triumphing over good. It triumphs over good, and evil will be victorious. So how to prevent this opposite thing? The simple solution many have said is that many a times this happens, that evil will be victorious over good because some good intention, nice people, they watch silently doing nothing. They don't become restless. So it is our duty, as I can say that Prophet Muhammad once said, if we see evil, what should we do? First thing is, if you have physical strength, you should prevent it. Second thing is, if you can't do that, you feel yourself weak, then you should at least tell others and take their help and see you are able to prevent that. And even that is not possible, that people are not coming forward. What is the last stage of Iman or faith they say is, at least from your heart, you should say, you should hate this evil thing and pray silently to God that God give me strength so that I can prevent this evil thing. So these are the various stages when you encounter evil, you have to do. So the most important thing I said just now is that many a times evil will be victorious over good because nice, good people, they are just nice doing nothing. They are nice, that's all. So because of that, evil forces come up and they have say over the society. Now, some people will say, okay, fine, it is a nice formula, we can do it. But many a times you may be wondering, why do people do evil things? Why do they want to do? There are various theories, they say. One thing is that it is their nature. If it is in their nature, evil things, we can't prevent them. They keep on doing. You try to prevent them, they do. Second thing is, even good is in our nature. So it is very easy, if it is good, that a person who is good will always be good because it is there in nature. But in philosophy and psychology, there is a theory that mind is a kind of blank slate, or tabula rasa, as it is called. Tabula rasa means in Latin, a blank slate over which our actions will write. So being good or bad is just a kind of, what I can say is actions. There is nothing good that is there in our nature. There is nothing bad in our natures. Our actions only make us good or bad. So every action we do, we have to be careful that that action is not going towards encouraging evil, or that particular action is not really harmful to anybody. So it is very important that your intentions have to be good. And it is said in Islam that the moment you think of to do a good thing in your heart, God will give you the necessary, what we can say, punya, or the kind of compensation that will be given in heaven will be already written in your account the moment you think of good. But supposing you want to do something bad, God is very kind. Unless you do that, then only that particular papa or punishment will be written in your fate book, or it will be given to you only after you commit the sin or you commit a bad thing. So this is the thing. The moment you do good intention, God is so kind that he will reward you immediately and write you in your account, if it is not given immediately, that when you come to meet him after you leave this world, he will certainly show you that, see, these are your deeds you have done, and this will be given. So this kind of philosophy is there in other religions also. You might ask, what about Hinduism? Is it there? Yes. They say Chitragupta, he is the one who will record your both good deeds and bad deeds. And Islam also, on your right and left shoulders, there are two angels who will always be recording this. They are called Kiraman Katibin. They'll be recording. Right shoulder will record good things you do, and left shoulder angel will record bad things or evil things, whatever you have done will be recorded. And in the next world, when you go and face God, that account will be presented to you. And so these are the deeds you have done, and for this you will be, good deeds you will be rewarded, and for your bad deeds you will. Now another concept that is there is an ultimate test will be there of the persons, and generally this is called salvation. Now in Upanishad, there is a saying that path to salvation, that is when you do good, you reach salvation. Now the path to the salvation is like razor's edge. It is like razor's edge, and those who do good and they want to attain salvation, they'll walk on this thin razor's edge as if they are walking, taking a walk in a beautiful garden. But those who do bad things, they won't attain salvation. Over that razor's edge, they get cut and fall into an abysmal pit that is there, that is hell. So this is the concept that is there both in Islam as well as in Upanishad, Hindu religion. So there are certain punishments that are given to those who commit evil things, so that if these things they become aware of it, we hope that there will be a fear of God and fear of these things, and they will try to avoid evil things. And if they are not able to do good, at least they remain neutral, doing good or bad, but just remain neutral. That will be much more useful than doing any bad thing. So this is why these various religions have prescribed these things. And also in Hindu religion, there is one more thing. If you do bad deeds, they say you accumulate what is known as karma. If you do bad deeds, if God doesn't punish you in this world, what will happen? In the next generation, when you take birth, they say your karma of bad deeds will be after you, and you will suffer in your next generation. Now, of course, you may say, doing good or bad, if it is to be already determined like this, you may say, as well say in the court of law, that is none of my fault. Why are you punishing me here? Anyway, I face punishment in the next world. So let me off now. Don't punish me for the evil things. You might ask in the court of law like that. But what will the court say? Even in Islam, it is there that every deed you are supposed to do is already predetermined. Okay, it is there in your fate, and if that is there, even such a person, we can say it is in my fate, it is in my nature. I have done. Don't punish me. Now, what is the answer to this? Of course, our late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, he had a nice definition of life. That life is the interplay of free will and determinism. Determinism in the sense our fate. Now, what is determinism? He gave a very simple example, like playing a game of bridge, where you will be given various shuffle cards, and we will be given various set of cards, a suit of cards it is called. So he said the suit of set that is given to you is your destiny or your determination. You are determined to do certain things. And the way you play those cards and win the game or lose the game is your, what I can say, free will. So courts will always take recourse to this. Maybe there is you get punishment in the next janma, or God will punish you, but there is always free will that is there through which you can judge your actions, and you have to be responsible for your actions. And if you commit wrong in the eyes of the law, courts will always are there. If you are taken to the court and if you are arraigned there with some evidence, and if it is proved that you have done wrong, you will be punished. So you can't escape by giving these philosophies. So those philosophies are there, those explanations are there, but still you are endowed with free will, and because of that free will, you are responsible for all your actions. You can't blame your fate, you can't blame your karma, or you can't blame something else and escape. That means God has made us, because of free will, responsible human beings. And of course, this is Dasara time, and we celebrate in various ways victory of good over evil, and those celebrations are going on now. So my greetings to all my friends on this Dasara celebrations. Now, somebody asked, what is the connection between Islam and Dasara? I think it was Prakash Dinzar. I said there is no direct connection as such, but which religion will not have that dictum that good should always prevail over evil? Good should be victorious over evil. Every religion has this. In fact, in Quran it is there that there should be a group of people always among the what we call as Ummah, or the followers of Prophet. Whoever has come after the Prophet, we call it as Ummah. Whether it is Hindu, Muslim, or any religion, we are supposed to be the Ummah of our Prophet. Now, he said in the Ummah there should be a group of people. He didn't necessarily say Muslims, a group of people who should be devoted actively to prevent evil and preach good things in life, so that people will do good and prevent others if they are there doing any evil things. You should physically form a group and try to prevent those people from committing their evil actions. Now, this is very much there. And then I also said that in Islam, even that what we call as path to salvation as razor's edge, it is called that razor's edge, it's called pulsirat. Pulsirat means again the same thing, a sharp line which is as sharp as razor. The same way, people who have done good will walk over that sharp thin line very happily, and they will reach heaven or salvation, as they say. Now, those who have committed evil and other acts which invite God's wrath, they will cut over that to pieces over that sharp razor's edge and fall into an abyss which is nothing but hell, and you are condemned to hell. So there are parallels. Exactly what is there in Upanishad about razor's edge is also there in Islam. So this is the connection, I would say, between Dasara and Islam. If that is the same, there are common things. So these common things, rituals may not be there, same rituals may not be there, but these particular things are already recorded in Quran. Again, same thing is there. You can't just blame God that you wanted you are written in my fate to do bad things, so I'm doing bad things. Why do you catch me? Again, God says you have been given free will, you have your own will, and then it is your responsibility not to do those things. Even if it is written your fate, it is your duty not to do that. Okay, you can't again blame God. It is written, so I have done. So these are the doubts that people commonly have, that good and evil are being punished by God, but still why people do this, and offer various explanations. They say you can, devil often quotes scriptures for his action. So something like that, you can't quote that it was written in my fate, so I have done this evil thing or bad thing, so don't blame me for that. You can never do. You are endowed with free will, and hence you are responsible for your action. Now, other thing that come to my mind is Gandhi Jayanti is very near. So what did Gandhi say about this? Now, he said a very simple thing. When you struggle for, let us say, to do something good against evil, how should you judge your actions? Some people may say that I earn a lot of money, maybe I am corrupt, but I spend all the money on doing something good. I give it to poor, I distribute in charity. So someone will ask, is such an action morally correct? No. Gandhiji said that your means should justify the ends. So here, what are the means? Your means are evil. You are earning money through corrupt means, or you are like Robin Hood, looting money from others, rich people, and distributing it to poor. No, such actions, they don't justify the ends. Ends may be good, but what are the means? They are bad. So means should justify the end. And for the same reason, he said, what is morally wrong cannot be politically right. Something that is morally wrong cannot be politically right. We always say in politics, it is pragmatism, as they call in philosophy. Anything that is there, if it is practical at that time, you can earn money by any means and use it for your political power. No, Gandhiji was dead against it, and for corruption, he gave a simple definition: wealth without work. That is what he said, corruption. Wealth without work. You know how people will earn, corrupt people. Wealth without work will destroy the nation, he said. And today, if the corruption is rampant in our society, you see what is the effect. What happened in recent times also. We just tolerate this. Some people will say, not only people want to get their work faster, let us say. What will they do? They'll try to bribe. I want a driving license. I will bribe and get it faster. Now, who is at fault? We are also at fault. Those good people who are trying to get this thing done without going through proper channel or without going through all the standing in a queue. You try to jump the queue by giving money and get the license. Now, such things again will encourage corruption. And same thing, you can apply Gandhiji's test. Means to justify the end. So this is the connection with somebody said that Gandhi Jayanti is coming, somehow try to connect these things with Gandhiji's sayings. So there are many other sayings of Gandhiji who said that we should do good or even sacrifice our personal things for doing good to others. And that's what he did. His simple life itself is an example that he sacrificed everything, all he had, for the sake of this nation. When he died, he never even aspired to be the prime minister of this country after having fought. Such was the greatness of this man. So that is an extreme thing, doing sacrifice to do something good for others, not for yourself. And that, I think, is an extreme. But minimum thing we can do is prevent physically anything that is there. And if that is not possible, at least try to form a group and try to form a movement to show that what that person is doing bad. And if that is not also possible, the last stage, of course, is almost helplessness, that from your heart you really hate what is happening. These are the various stages through which our human life goes. Now, if that is the case, good and evil will, this struggle will go on, and many a times these evil things that happen, that is because due to injustices that are there in society. See, justice is the primary requirement for everything. If there is justice which prevails in society, I think evil will be at its minimum, because those who do evils will be caught in the process and courts will be punish them. As a result, will minimize evil in our society. Now, if the justice itself is not there, what will happen to that society? That particular society will disintegrate, and will even try to influence, what has happened, even judges, judiciary. You are trying to make them corrupt and start blaming that judges are corrupt. You would have done that, and you'll say judges are corrupt. You blame judiciary. Courts are very bad these days. They don't give proper judgments. But who is responsible? It is society itself. So there are various aspects. So justice is one. We have to take care. And we see that courts are in no way influenced by us, and courts should be guarded, and judiciary should be free and fair. And if that is there, will create an environment in which evil things will automatically be prevented. They won't be victorious, and what will be finally be victorious is people who do good. So these are the things, and somebody said that truth and goodness both are related. Yes. See, when people tell lies and try to get away with whatever they have done, they will ultimately be caught. And there are people who will fight and try to prove that they are telling lies, and they are trying to hoodwink people, and they are trying to, what I can say, cheat people and get away with their evil things. If that is the case, we know that ultimately, if we really see that justice prevails in a society, evil will automatically will be prevented. Now, these are the various concepts that are there in various religions, and how ultimately every religion will say that there should be justice, there should be equality, and then there will be victory of good over evil. These are the other things that have to be there in a particular society, which will create a conducive environment for this victory of good to happen over evil. Now, you might say that, of course, one thing that should be there is human rights have to be respected. And they should be respected in all sections of society. They should not be to a particular section of the society by virtue of their wealth that is there, or by virtue of their caste, or by virtue of their religion. We should not bring in all these things. So what is important is that we should always strive for the things that are truthful. And in our, of course, in our own national, what we can say, flag or national emblem, or anywhere else in government jobs, or that seal that is there of Ashoka, below that, if you see, there is a saying that is there, Satyameva Jayate. Truth will ultimately triumph. So if truth triumphs, it is the victory of good over evil. These things are there, very much there. Nobody says that this should not be there. Everybody, irrespective of caste or religion, he knows that good is good and evil is really bad, and we should try to avoid. But still, if these things are happening, because various factors I have said are there in our society, we should overcome and create an environment where justice will prevail, particularly for the poor people, weaker section of the people. Okay, so as it is said that poor will ultimately get a kind of relief when they really are able to approach anybody, particularly courts, for getting justice and get justice very easily. I think it is easier said than done. If you are poor, you know how difficult it is. As there some poet said, "Mana ke tere mere armano ki कीमत कुछ भी नहीं, मिट्टी का भी कुछ मोल है, इंसानों की कीमत कुछ भी नहीं, इंसानों की इज्जत जब झूठे सिक्कों में ना तोली जाएगी, वो सुबह कभी तो आएगी, वो सुबह कभी तो आएगी." A day will come that humans will be respected for what they are, not for what they have. Okay, but not for what wealth they have. And this kind of human dignity is actually we aspire. As I said in one of the earlier movies, Ganga Jamna, so the song is there where the children in a school, they sing, and the words are so beautiful. तन मन की भेंट देकर भारत की लाज रखना, इंसानियत के सर पे इज्जत का ताज रखना. What beautiful words, that you sacrifice everything and bring dignity to our country, bring dignity to the entire humanity. I think with these few words, I end my talk. Any clarification and doubts, I'll welcome from the audience.
Thank you, Dr. Naeem, for that beautiful talk on the victory of good over evil. You opened your presentation saying we need to prevent evil, we need to seek others' help to prevent evil, and even if those things don't work, then at least we should have a desire to end evil. And that is a very profound thought, I think, very practical thought to practice in our life too. The tragedy today is the nice people, they do nothing. Perhaps they may not be contributing for the evil, but they do not do anything to prevent evil. That itself may be a kind of a big question that we have in today's society. Therefore, the belief that we have, the good deeds will be awarded and bad deeds are punished as a part of every religion, and that's what we believe, and that what prompts us to become good in our life as well. You also brought out what is the similarity between the Islam and the Dasara that we are celebrating just now, and you also quoted Gandhi saying what is morally wrong cannot be politically right. And wealth before work is what is prompting to be more corrupt today. And I think that is very much seen. And when perhaps justice prevails and evil disappears, and especially the call that we have given that human rights should be respected, divide of any religion, the caste, or perhaps any community, whether of any status, that one person holds. I think these are the highlights and many other points that you have highlighted in your presentation. Thank you very much for giving us that understanding of victory of good over evil. Now is the time for interaction, for questions. For the participants can post your questions in the chat box, or you can ask the questions directly. I got already, Doctor, 2 questions. The first one is, nowadays secularism is becoming a bad word. Does secularism mean giving up your own religion? How can you practice religion while being secular? This is the question.
Oh, see, being secular doesn't involve giving up your religion. Secularism is respect for every religion, and even for atheists, let me tell you. See, many rationalists are atheists. They don't believe in God. So we should respect even their ideas, okay? Though we know that they don't believe in God. So religion and secularism, they should not be mixed up. In fact, some even hate this secularism as a Western concept, a concept that is alien to India. That is not so. Gandhiji wanted secular India because he practiced and believed in secularism, and he quoted what is known as Vedas for that. In Vedas, it is written, let noble thought come to us from every direction. And remember what Gandhiji said, that I consider myself to be in a house where its doors are closed and its windows are open. And through those windows, different cultures, different ideas, those beautiful winds, they blow. And he will be standing there and enjoying, but he will not be blown over by that. He will stand firmly as an Indian and stand firmly for what religion he has. He will not give up. But every good idea that is there in any other religion is welcome. It is incorporated. In fact, good ideas are secular. Like I said, the comparison between Pulsirat and Razor's Edge, they are there. They are totally secular. And it will be there even in Christianity. Same thing is there. I don't think any religion has anything different. So you practice your religion, be proud of your religion, but when you are proud, you can't berate other religion. This is one thing. And say that my religion is superior, and because of this, your religion is inferior. In fact, in Islam, that is prohibited. You can't just say. In fact, in the Prophet's life, that happened. We say that our Sharia, that personal laws, they're all similar to Moses' 10 commandments. Then somebody said, If that is the great, so if that is so, one person approached and said, "Who is great?" Well, in the other world, if both meet Moses and prophet, who will be great? How will you know who is closer to God? They took this person to Prophet Muhammad itself. Muhammad said, "No, I can't say about these things." He definitely refused to answer. And he said, when the angel Michael, I think it is, who blows that trumpet and doomsday will come, will say everything will fall down. And they both, Moses and Prophet Muhammad, will fall down. And who is nearer to him will depend on which side of the throne of God you fall. God, he said, Prophet is unable to say that. So Prophet never said that one particular religion is definitely bad, another religion is good, or one religion is inferior, one religion is bad. Practice your religion, be proud of it, but never at the cost of other religions. And you can as well do that. You be secular by respecting all religions, including atheists. It is possible.
Yeah, thank you for that. The second question is, today religion and politics is very much mixed up. Do you feel it should be separated from politics, or play a crucial role, or religion should play a crucial role in politics? What is your take on this?
Yeah, as far as religion is concerned, they bring in religion by various means, and also berate a religion by interfering in their personal laws. Okay, not because there will be something good will be established, justice will be done. It is a kind of some victory, they say, by doing that, showing one particular religion is inferior. Now what we have done, that particular religion is bad to particular sex or bad to women. Now we will restore dignity by altering these laws. Yes, this kind of interferences have been there, and they have happened. Best thing is to keep religion out of politics and take only the guiding principles of every religion, which are good. It should guide, but they should not become the guiding principle. Take United States. I don't think they follow any religion in their government laws. Particularly, they are secular. Many used to say that Catholics will never become a president. John F. Kennedy became a president there. So Protestants and this kind of things are not there. Anybody can become. Obama was, I think, second or third generation American. He was there. I think second generation. He became president of that particular country. Whereas here we have reservations telling that person is foreigner, he should not become, even though a person is Indian, has accepted Indian citizenship. So these kind of religious interferences should be avoided, but principles which are good in every religion should be the cornerstones in guiding, including the courts. They can take those kind of good things, but not those which are contentious, that divide society. So bringing religion into politics will divide society. This is my opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much. There is a question from Mr. Prakash. Prakash, can you ask that question again? I am not getting your question.
Yes, Father.
Yeah.
So, actually, our doctor suggested, are you getting me?
Yes, speak a little louder, yes.
He said there are 3 steps in the opposing. So first is they keep they keep silent. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So the reason is they are weak, so they keep silent. And the second step, he said, you will have to seek support from others. And the third step is to pray to the God. So I want our doctor, does he have any suggestion steps for the people to come from third step to the first step? The reason why many are hesitant to come to the first step, that is to oppose the evil, is the law. Because when once they involve, they are being questioned and taken to task. So that may be the reason why many set back without obstructing any evil going on under their nose. So does he have any suggestions or steps
Yes.
for that?
If you have finished your question, shall I answer it further?
Yeah. Question is, I hope your question is clear for you. He
Yeah,
said,
I got the.
how
Yeah.
to come from the third stage, from a spiritual stage
Yeah, if somebody
to action stage, very actively we prevent the evil. Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
yes, you will be, I think, slapped with some false cases. You will be troubled. All these things are there. Remember our freedom struggle. What all Gandhiji has to do, what all the things he did, and still he never resorted to violence. And whenever the fight is between good and bad, he never cared where it is enemies that are fighting. For the Second World War, it is very clear. When the fight was going on, he said Indian army should participate, Indian soldiers should participate and make Britishers victorious, because he knew that those powers, allies, they are towards the right side, and the others, Hitler and others, they are on the wrong side. So whenever there is such a fight is given, you have to choose. You can't say right and wrong my religion, right or wrong my country. Right and wrong is very obvious. It doesn't depend on something, on your religion or on your caste or anything. It's independent of that, and certain amount of sacrifice and struggle is a must. If you are scared of government, or if you are scared of any other agencies that you will be punished because if you go against some unjust laws, I think it is tough to achieve this. Struggle is there always. If you decide to take part in it, have guts and take part. Otherwise, from your heart, you keep on hating that and try to secretly, as it has happened in Second World War, there were underground movement against Hitler and other things. You take part in such things. I'm not telling that you should rebel against the government or you should do something. But whenever certain actions or certain laws are, you say are wrong, you have right to protest.
Yeah, just continuing that question, there is another question. And how to counter this whole concept of holy wars? Every religion is somewhere directly or indirectly promoting kind of the holy war. It's the defense of the religion.
Yes.
In the name of defending the religion, or perhaps the sanctity of religion or the supremacy of the religion, some kind of, it is idea of these holy wars are floated. Now, how do we, in a secular context, come to terms of dialogue?
Holy war, yes. See, as far as holy war, maybe you are referring to jihad, the concept of jihad that is there in certain religion, in our Islam, let us say.
Not only in jihad, even in Christianity it was there.
Yeah, earlier crusades were there, yes.
It was part of, very much part of it.
Were there, fine. But one thing I find today is that I don't think there is any conspiracy at international level, at government level against any religion. I can say that. Whatever people are talking, religious heads are talking, it is, I will say, is not correct. There is no conspiracy against any religion. This has to be made clear to everybody that no particular religion is trying to dominate the entire world by international, we can say, machination or by international war. There is Clash of Civilization by Huntington. There was a book where it has brought up there will be clash. I don't believe in such ideas, and many intellectuals, they don't believe. So we have to make it clear that world has come because of science and technology. From all this, we can no longer engage in crusades of earlier times. We can no longer engage in jihad against infidels. No, jihad is struggle within and stand for principles you believe in. And if those principles are right, it is worth sacrificing your life. That I agree. Struggle should be there, but not on religious grounds. No. And there is a false propaganda in every religion that a particular, see, Jews are very bad. They are all uniting against Muslims. Where is the evidence? Where is it there? I don't think it is there. I simply don't believe on such theory. Anything bad you believe to Jew, you say that this is a Jewish conspiracy that is happening. No, such things have to be prevented for any religion. I'm just giving an example. It is very easy to escape for your own defect, blame somebody else. There's international conspiracy of some religions. Christianity and Jewish people, both are united against Islam. But what is the truth? That Islam believes in all the books. If I don't believe in Jesus, I'm not a Muslim. It is written in Quran. It is one of the components of our faith that you should believe in all the books that have come, including Torah, including Bible and Quran. You should believe in all the prophets that have come and preached before us. If such a concept is brought into religion, I think first thing is to dispel these international conspiracy theories that are there. Christianity is trying to dominate the world, and Jewish people are trying to dominate the world. No such thing exists. Israel, they fought for their land, and neighbors happen to be Arabs and Muslims. The fight is going on. That's all. And similarly with our countries, we have any problems with our neighbors. It is not because of the religious difference. It is because of something else. Though you make it up as religion, I don't think that is not the basis. They go to such an extent that Muslims will not fight against a particular country because they belong to that particular religion. No, such things are bad. It should not be there. And it is our duty of intellectuals of every religion to preach that there is no such conspiracy to dominate this world by a particular religion. It has already been dominated. Largest majority of the world is Christian, the first. Second is Muslims. What else is needed, you tell me? Why should these two religions engage in anything like that, international conspiracy? Total number is more. You should tell them it is foolish to have such ideas of dominance.
Okay, in a context like extreme fundamentalism, and that is the law of the day, how does a marginalized religion or a perhaps victimized religion should react is the question today. Whether still religion should be passive, or religion should be aggressive, or religion should get into a dialogue. What is the role of a religion?
Yeah,
continuously victimized.
Yes. Continuously victimized, and continuously those religious rights of the people are suppressed. I think best thing is to seek a constitutional remedy, make certain laws very strong, which are already there in our constitution as far as our country is concerned. Religious freedom is given, and everybody is equal before law, irrespective of religion. Of course, certain judgments have happened, and the courts have agreed that you can't even correct the things that have happened in the past through a judgment that has been made clear. Though judgment went against a particular community, it doesn't matter. But they have made it clear that one cannot correct historical wrongs. That particular judgment is very clear there. So if you are hell-bent on taking revenge on the deeds committed by some rulers, and those rulers happen to be your religion, and I think every ruler was not a religious person to have fought with everybody else. If you want to rule, you have to buy peace with every religion that is there. That is the first requirement. The fact some particular religion ruled for particular religious people rule for not religious, I would say belonging to a particular religion, they rule is because like anybody else would have ruled. Like any kings were there, those were the times when democracy was not there, those were the times. And because of that, all these things have happened. I don't deny that oppression has not taken place against every community must have suffered, including poor, irrespective of their religion. But we give a religious color and then try to hate the entire community. Such things should be corrected right at the history level, and court judgments that have come recently should be highlighted, particularly that part that courts cannot correct historical wrongs. This judgment is very clear. This should be highlighted. Then I think marginalized religions will have some strength there. If that is not done, I think it is very tough. And it has been tough. Even human rights of some marginalized religions are suppressed. For no reason you are put in jail. Particularly if you happen to help poor and marginalized people, they'll blame religion. You are trying to convert those people and put you in jail. Such things have not happened. They have happened right now. I think you are well aware. One Jesuit priest is suffering for no fault of his.
Yeah, very true. Now, where is the space for dialogue is a big question. That is where we have to explore the space for the dialogue. We cannot have a dialogue with the fundamentalists because they are not in a position to what you call have a dialogue at all. They are at a very extreme position. They are very violent in their language and their attitude. How do we claim that space for a argumentative Indian dialogue? In that sense,
Yeah. I think rationality should be given due consideration. You can't be just blind this thing. You should tell them, right or wrong, you can't quote your religion. Right or wrong, you can't quote even your nation. You may say you are not a patriot, but something the whole nation is doing wrong, we can't just take part in it if it is wrong. This has to be very clear. Your conscience should decide what is right and wrong, and you should stand by it. I think when Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali Clay, I think he did not go to the war and he was punished for that. He said he was willing to take that.
Okay, Doctor, thank you so much. I think questions are over. Thank you for your answering all the questions, queries very patiently. And thank you for that thought of how to overcome evil by still being good. Yes, Prakash, you got a question?
Yes, Father.
Yeah.
For the doctor.
I have one question, Father.
Yes, Mr. Janaki Ram, please go ahead.
Dr. Naimullah Khan, you may be aware it was a very good talk, and it makes all the more difficult because as per Hinduism, we are in Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, evil is more predominant. So it is much more difficult to fight the evil, and as you rightly said, we should have a united way and take help, and definitely God's grace and blessing is required. Do we have any concept of yugas in Islam? Like 4 yugas in Hinduism, you may be aware.
Yeah, I think Christians also, and even in Islam, what is known as scatology. Scatos means dark. So dark ages will come again. That's what they say. And those dark ages are near doomsday. That is the thing. That concept is there, but they don't have a kind of yuga, Kali Yuga like that. Kali Yuga is equivalent to those kind of days that are coming, where the injustice will be dominant, where inequality will be dominant, and ultimately Muslims believe that Jesus Christ will come and rule the world. That is the thing, and bring salvation. That is the thought of Muslims. I think Christians already have that thought only. I don't think their thought is...
Okay, similar to what you said in Revelation in the Bible. Okay.
Bible, same thing, yes. In Quran also it is there, and it is our duty that Jesus will come here and will be the king of the world, and he will rule. That is what we have said. He is in heaven. He was not crucified. He is not dead. He is living in the heaven. In fact, I gave that example when I once talked about how certain rules were also. See, when the prophet went there in the heaven, he met Jesus. And Jesus gave us the gift of 5 times prayer. I told you whether you were there or not when I told this. He gave. Otherwise, prophet was ready to accept 50 times a day prayer. It is because he intervened. Jesus said, look, my people, once in a week also, if I had made them compulsory, they are finding it difficult to stick to that. Please don't accept from God this 50 times a day prayer. So what is the lesson that is being taught? You may be superior, you may be this and that, but as far as taking advice is concerned, you should respect the seniority. Who is the senior here? Jesus. So even in promotion, anywhere, if you want to do justice, seniority has to be respected. That is the message that is conveyed by this kind of interaction which prophet had when he went to heaven and came back. That is our belief. He met Jesus, brought the gift of 5 days prayer to this earth.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Janaki Ram sir.
Thank you. Prakash, did you have a question or you wanted...
Hey, I do have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Janaki Ram came, so I just gave him the chance. Doctor, now we were talking about the evils and everything. Do you feel if there is a reform in politics, the scenario can change?
I didn't get the question, Prakash. Can you repeat it?
Now the evils are getting more and there is no this one. And for whatever is going on, we don't have a voice. And Father said that we don't have a platform. So what I'm this one is, if there is a reform in politics, so if we get a good politician, will there be a change in the scenario?
Yes, I would say Gandhiji has said, it's not that I'm a Gandhian. No, Gandhiji has clearly said that my life is the message. And he has said, and if we can practice that kind of politics when he was doing freedom struggle, I think that should be the kind of rule book or guidebook his life. I think then the politicians will behave properly. How they are after death against Gandhi, you know, this is a kind of two-faced kind of thing. They try to say that they believe in Gandhi, but all other people, all other actions are even sayings, they boldly that they praise the person that killed the or assassinated Gandhi. You know that. So you should sincerely, without any hypocrisy, you should embrace Gandhiji. That is my thing. As far as politics is concerned, it's not that I am a blind fan of whatever Gandhi did, but certain principles he laid down are very secular and are guiding principle for the entire nations. It is because of that we have forgotten him. All these troubles have come. It's not that I am prescribing any panacea or cure for all like things, but you try to emulate Gandhiji, his principle. I think politics will be a much better thing. What profound statement he made. Politics without, what is morally wrong cannot be politically correct. Pragmatism in politics, you know, Machiavellian tactics and all, is there in philosophy, also in politics. But I would say that right or wrong, my party, right or wrong, my religion, right or wrong, my country, these concepts should go. And then only a person will be a normal person. Otherwise, I don't consider him normal. That is, sorry if I said it frankly. A normal, rational human being should be free of all this.
That is the practical, correct term, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think with this note, we'll come to this very fruitful discussion that we have and very useful interaction and clarifying our own concepts of triumph of good over evil, in especially in the context we are celebrating the feast of Dasara. The aspiration of Dasara is just that we aspire continually to conquer the evil. Unfortunately, that is not translated into action. It remains at a ritual level. Perhaps that is the challenge for us in our religious life. And when we especially share our religious experience, how it can be more authentic. Our aspirations are very good in themselves, but they are not translated into constructive action, which is leading towards a just society. Perhaps we need to strive towards that kind of just society based on our true aspirations and perhaps translating our religious aspirations into reality. So thank you once again, Dr. Naimullah Khan, for sparing your time. And
thank you very much, Father. Nice. I'm interacting with you.
And also very patiently clarifying all our doubts and queries on behalf of IRHM team. I thank you profoundly, and I request you to continue to be part of IRHM and this movement. So thank you very much. I also would like to thank Father Joseph and company for this prayer and his support. Special thanks to Mr. Prakash for doing the background work. Thank you, Prakash, for your work. So, and I thank all the participants that have taken part in this interreligious prayer and meeting. And let us continue to conquer evil. Let us continue to pray that we move towards a society that is based on morality, that is based on ethics, and not to be a people of kind of pessimistic that nothing is going to happen. Each one of us has got a responsibility to conquer evil, and I think only we can play that part. I think we cannot expect somebody else to play a part for us. Waiting in vain that somebody else will help in conquering the evil. Each one of us should play a very proactive role in conquering that evil. So thank you once again. Stay safe and pray for your neighbor as well. Take care of your neighbor during this COVID times in a special way, and stay safe. Thank you very much. See you. God bless us all. Thank you.